All right, you guys. This is going to be our weekly webinar here on sleep. Real quick, it's February 24th. My name is Athletic Club. We're going to call it a podcast at this point. I know I typically call it a weekly webinar and coaching call, but I think we're going to make the official name swap today, which is exciting. And this is where we're going to discuss real fitness questions from real people kind of every single week. So I'm really excited to kind of keep this journey rolling with you guys. If you want to learn anything more about our program, check out our virtual business card. We'll drop it in the links here at the bottom. And you can always get our social media handles, a free week of programming, and a ton more. So without further ado, let's get into it. Real fast, I'll go through a quick background of myself. I've been all walks of health and wellness journeys, from 150 pounds soaking wet, wishing I could be stronger and more athletic, to 230 pounds, unable to potentially fly a military aircraft because the ejection seat was only rated to 231. So I was 1 pound away from being told I couldn't fly a military plane, which was my chosen profession. So knowing that I needed to make a change, but in both photos, I was working out 2+ hours a day and doing probably more than I needed to be to have the body and lifestyle that I kind of wanted. So what I didn't know back then and what I hope to know now is that achieving your dream body doesn't really take 2 hours of working out per day. It's more about understanding your body, listening to it, and working to improve. And what I do now is I train hard, but it's only about 45 minutes a day. And it's not even every day, which is really, really great and excellent. It's a skill that I hope to kind of pass on to you guys through this process. So now I kind of feel like I'm strongest and most fit that I've kind of ever been. And I kind of want to help you guys along the way as well, picking your flavor of health and wellness. And that kind of gets us into our topic for today. So let's talk about sleep. This dog is hella cute too. I just figured I would throw that in there. So sleep plays a critical role in your mental, physical, and emotional health. I mean, think about how well you can perform in anything that you do when you're tired and all you can think about is going to bed. It kind of sucks, right? New research, I think, has been produced and comes out almost daily about how important sleep is, about quality, quantity. There's sleep trackers, there's this and that. They're saying how it relates to performance, stress and anxiety, diet, how that relates, physical activity, use of technology, sleep environment, this and that. And I think a lot of times we can get a little bit inundated with all of that information. And you almost get like paralysis by analysis because of all the information that's out there. So what I want to do is talk real briefly about some topics about sleep, some actionable steps that you can take to improve your sleep and improve your recovery at home so you're able to be the best for the people that you love. So without further ado, I want to get into a little bit of science. We're going to talk a little bit circadian rhythm. I know people have heard this a lot. It's kind of a buzzword, but I thought this picture kind of really, really gets into the weeds just about enough for us that we can kind of chat. So let's go with, let's say, hey, everybody is gonna hypothetically in this situation wake up around 6 a.m. right over here. You get a blood pressure rise. You're gonna wake up. Your melatonin shuts down. You're likely gonna have to take that morning poop if you're a coffee drinker, which I'm sure that probably happens for a lot of you. You're getting some other hormones, testosterone, etc. You become more alert through noon. You become more coordinated. Your reaction time is quickest. So this is like during daylight hours, of course, here on this. It's not a traditional clock. Sorry for that, but it's almost like more of like a 24-hour one as we kind of work our way around. The next one being you have your greatest cardiovascular efficiency and muscular strength, higher blood pressure, and then your body starts to go into kind of shutdown mode, melatonin coming out, suppressing bowel movements, deepest part of your sleep for recovering, and then your lowest body temp throughout that kind of evening cycle. So what I kind of want to stress and emphasize is that this is like a process that has been around since like the dawn of man, right? The circadian rhythm is something that is basically you syncing up to the cycle of the sun. And then your body has been able to map itself to that for optimal performance and for survival at the end of the day. So your circadian rhythm is super important to understand, especially when you're trying to make effective sleep occur. because it comes down to kind of building habits that align with this cycle, as well as routines that don't conflict with it, and then actually aid you in completion of a good and restful night of sleep. So what happens when we sleep? This is going to be a little bit of a wordy slide here, so just kind of bear with me as I kind of go through these types of things. We've got a ton of stuff going on. Physical repair and recovery. Your muscles and tissue are going to repair a ton when we're releasing those vital hormones at night to kind of regenerate your cells. Your cognitive function, like brain function, your memories consolidate. It's a way for your brain in general to consolidate memories, and your cognitive performance to kind of reboot and get ready for the next day. Your metabolic health, hormone regulation, and energy use is another huge thing that occurs. You're regulating hormones like leptin, ghrelin, like a ton of those other things too, reducing risk of type 2 diabetes, blood sugar levels. A lot of those things are occurring as well. Your body's metabolism is being optimized in sleep, so you're actually breaking down those foods and whatnot while you're sleeping, so that you're able to have the energy for the next day. Your immune function is going off. Your response for fighting off diseases, because your body's in a resting period, you're able to kind of fight those off. All your vital, energy, carbohydrate or calories, excuse me, are being used to do that, fight off inflammation, and those types of factors as well. Your emotional and mental health. You've got emotional regulation that's occurring when we're in sleep. You got stress reduction that's occurring while we're sleeping. You've got your brain health, so brain detoxing, which has to do with your like waste products that are basically from your brain, and the fact that your brain's more of like a deciding what's to keep versus like storing all information. Because if you could imagine, your brain's just sitting here and retaining in every single thing that you hear, see, smell, taste, all of that. It's really just filtering out all the things that you kind of need on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of that detox kind of occurs while you're sleeping as well. Your hormonal balance, adequate sleep for reproductive health is incredibly important. Your sex hormones, fertility, all those things can be linked to lack of sleep. So what I want you to kind of realize from this is like, it basically, sleep touches almost everything, almost every bodily function, almost all of the things that are important for us to be, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually performing well and optimizing for our day to day. So what are the most common things that are affecting your sleep quality in general? I would say like these are probably the top 5 things that are going to be something that you can kind of identify as a factor that's going to address your sleep. Now, this isn't all encompassing, but it's something that I kind of threw together here for us to chat about. Stress and anxiety is going to be a huge one. Your mental health is going to affect your ability to fall asleep and stay asleep. Your diet and nutrition, the effects of caffeine, alcohol, the foods that you eat are all going to affect your sleep. Physical activity and the timing of your physical activity, believe it or not, can also affect your sleep. Use of technology. I know people have heard blue light, this, and kind of goes back to our circadian rhythm discussion as well. And then your sleep environment, so understanding the best way to kind of optimize that for you to get a good restful night of sleep. So how do we perform those couple factors? Your stress, your diet, your physical activity, your use of technology, and your sleep environment? Well, there's a couple ways to do that. So your mental health practice. So this could be something that has to do with, meditation. This could be something where you're doing some deep breathing. This could be something that you just decide to do something that you enjoy doing before you go to sleep, or sometime in the day, so that you're able to kind of have that time for yourself. It looks different for everybody. Maybe you're a hiker. Maybe you're somebody who likes to take an evening walk. Maybe you're somebody who likes to read before bed. But basically figuring out kind of what checks that box for you is going to be something that's going to be super helpful when you're sleeping or getting ready to sleep. Eating whole nutrient-dense foods most of the time. I know I've stressed this a lot, but the more whole foods and less processed foods that you eat, the better your sleep is going to be. It's something that's pretty inherent in having a healthier diet. And then limiting caffeine intake as well right before bed. If you're somebody who's drinking a cup of coffee at 8 p.m., and you're typically in bed at 9 or 10, that's going to affect your sleep quality as well. And alcohol too can actually affect your sleep, how restful it is, and the quality of that sleep too. Getting some exercise in. I know we talk a lot about that, but what that does, it activates your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. It's going to help you enter into somewhat of a stressful state, and then your body is going to know the difference between rest and digest and fight or flight, which is going to actually help you kind of enter that rest and digest state when you're going to bed. Some limiting of your exposure to artificial light in the evening. So this is the blue light that we kind of talk about. So screens, TVs, you name it, all those things kind of will affect your sleep. Consistent sleep schedule. So this would be like having a routine of like, hey, every day I usually wake up around X time and I go to bed at X time. The more consistent that is, the better off your sleep quality is going to be over time. Pre-sleep routine. I know I talked a little bit about this before, but whether it's something that you do like, hey, I'm going to have a cup of tea before I go to bed, warm glass of milk, whatever your kind of ritual and routine look like, it's going to be something that if you're more consistent with that, it's going to aid in your body kind of starting the wind down process so that you're able to sleep better over time. And then setting up your sleep space with intention. This is something that I want to spend a little bit more time on, and it's about optimizing that sleep environment that you have. So, adjusting the light available to the room or that is in the room, the temperature of your home or your sleep space is another thing that could be really important. Reducing your noise if you can. Some people like to sleep with like a white noise maker, or like a fan on or those types of things. Those things can be really helpful if that's helpful for you. But one thing that I think a lot of people end up doing is they end up doing more activities in their sleep space than just sleeping. So let's take a bedroom, for example. Let's say you've got a big bedroom and you've got a desk on the side and you work in your bedroom and then you make lunch and then you come back to your desk and then you're eating in your bedroom. You've got a TV mounted in there, so you're watching football games or et cetera, in the bedroom. What happens is your body and your mind are attaching a bunch of different tasks and a bunch of different things to that space. So imagine, now every time you walk in your bedroom, your mind's like, okay, are we going to watch TV today? Are we going to do work today? Are we going to eat today? Or are we going to sleep today? So I find that it's really effective to help optimize your space to kind of have your bedroom be your bedroom for sleeping, So whether that means you don't have TVs in there, that would be probably ideal, but not realistic for most people. But like if you're eating in bed, I'd say it might be helpful for you to kind of move away and start to eat in a space that's more like a kitchen or a living room. So you're able to kind of separate those things in your mind and your body kind of follows suit. So just something I kind of want to put a quick plug in for you guys as we're going through this. So I struggled a lot with sleep, and I want to kind of talk about my path a little bit while we're on. So when I was in college, I was taking 22 to 24 credits a semester studying to be a mechanical engineer. I was a collegiate athlete. I was frequently going to bed at 1 or 2 in the morning, and awake at like 6 or 7. So you're doing the math. It's probably like 4 to 5 hours of sleep most weekdays. Chronically tired. So, it was almost like a badge of honor, though, ironically enough. And I don't know if anybody else experiences this either in their workplace or whether they were in school or whatever, but it was like, oh, like I only got 4 or 5 hours of sleep and I'm still here, working or doing whatever. And, it may look different for everybody, but what ended up happening was like I ended up having a bunch of things that negatively affected me because of that. And it kind of permeated into other parts of my life. That was grades, physical, my physical health, my focus in school or in class and at work. If any of these things kind of sound familiar, I would urge you to look more into your sleep patterns, the quality of your sleep, and other factors that may be affecting your sleep as well. What I didn't realize is, all those ancillary problems could be something that could be caused by a change in my sleep patterns. So what I ended up doing, I ended up setting a, drop dead time for when I was going to stop working. And I still kind of stick with that even now, but the time has since shifted up because I'm getting older. But in college, I decided that 11 p.m. was my drop dead time. So if I went to sleep every single night, no matter what, if I was doing homework, if I was doing studying for an exam, if I was, had a workout or something else that went super late, anything at all, I decided that my life was basically, I was going to drop at 11 o'clock. Maybe people with kids, maybe people with other opportunities or things going on in their life don't have that luxury, but at the time I did, and it's something that I've carried forward now. So what happened over time is that my physical health got better, my mental health got better, my grades improved. I was performing better in sports. All these things kind of started to snowball. And it took a long time for me to realize that a lot of that was because I decided to have that kind of drop dead time, really take the time to rest and recover when I was sleeping, and then kind of progress. So, um, although the journey has kind of come a long way since then, what I'll say is, kind of go into what I kind of do on a day-to-day basis from that, which that was kind of the first impetus of when I started to take my sleep more seriously, and then talk about kind of what I've got going on now. So, right now, my biggest struggle, I'll say, when it comes to sleep is that I've got a really busy mind. A lot of you may empathize or sympathize with that, and it's like, hey, all the time my mind is thinking like, hey, what's next thing? What is my next day going to look like? How was today? All the thoughts just kind of swirl and swirl and swirl. So what I do to kind of combat that is I have a couple kind of key things that I like to do. And it's my sleep schedule is incredibly strict. I'm typically winding down to lay down into bed around 8 o'clock. I go pretty much 8, maybe I'm in bed and actually sleep by 8:30 or 9, and then I'm up around 4 o'clock in the morning. And that's kind of what works for me on most weekdays. Weekends, it'll kind of fluctuate plus or minus an hour, but for the most part, it's about the same hours. Um, and I want to preface the rest of these too, that this is not going to be for everybody. So please, like, as you're listening to this, like, take what you want and leave the rest. As kind of like a buffet style of a meal, right? So I'm just kind of giving you a couple of tips of things that I do. I'm not expecting anybody that listens to this to do these things. It's just some things that work for me. So just to continue here, I set up my sleep environment for success. And what that is we actually don't have a TV in the bedroom. And the reason is actually pretty funny. Like, we don't have an outlet that's in a good position for the TV to mount. So we never actually put one in there. Now I can say, oh yeah, we just like don't have a TV and like we blah, blah, blah. But realistically, it's because it didn't work out when I first moved in to the house. And I have since just started to kind of embrace the fact that our bedroom is kind of set up for success in that way, where there's no TV in there. And it's something that I think has kind of helped me wind down a little bit as I start getting ready for bed. So like I said before, that sleep space is really meant for the sleep in general. A ritual for sleep. What I do before bed every single night is I have a journaling practice. So I'll basically free write, for like 5 or so minutes. It's typically a little bit less than that, but I'll write for a little bit. And I've actually been doing that for the better part of 2 years now. And then what I'll also do is I started to read. Initially, and this is pretty funny, the initial reason that I started reading was because reading put me to bed. Like, reading made me really, really tired, and I wasn't somebody who was a big reader. And it's ironic because my mother is actually an author. Um, and I'll tell everybody, like, I never used to like to read. Like, I was the kid, believe it or not, I was given a Harry Potter book when I was like, I don't know, like 10. And I basically like read one page of it, and then I flipped like 100 pages forward and then like read another page. And I told my mom in like 20 minutes that I finished the whole book. And she was like, oh yeah, right. And then asked me questions about it. And I knew nothing about the book. So, I'm somebody who was not a reader for a very, very long time. But once I started incorporating it into my practice, I find that like reading also helps to settle my mind because it puts it in a different place. Reading takes me out of my life, out of my day to day, out of my kind of sphere, and puts me into whether that's, some fictional reality, or whether that's some like self-help style of book, or kind of whatever I decide to read, fiction or nonfiction. It really helps me kind of detract from where I am and help me kind of quiet all the kind of thoughts that I have. And by the time I read for 10 or 15 minutes, I'm like ready to go, lights out, and then kind of move on. So that's kind of my ritual for when I go to bed. And the last thing that I do is I really don't have caffeine past 8 or 9 in the morning most days. I find that caffeine is something, and I actually did another episode a couple weeks ago on kind of all things caffeine. But caffeine later on in the day, typically after like noon, they say about 10 hours from the time you're going to go to bed can affect your sleep quality. So just something to keep in mind. Again, kind of like a buffet, take what you want, leave the rest. But this is kind of some of the stuff that I do. Okay, let's think about some things that you can try. So think about one small action that you can take that'll help your sleep, and whether that's your sleep environment or your sleep ritual or whatever that is, and try it for a week. The reason that I suggest people do this is because if you read or listen to what I just said, like, oh, I journal, I read, I don't have a TV in the room, and all these things, like that sounds incredibly overwhelming. So the best step, the one step that you can take is the one that's super actionable and something that you can do with consistency. So let's say that you decide like, hey, my phone is going to go on do not disturb if you have the luxury of doing that for work or personal reasons from, I don't know, 10 at night until 6 in the morning. Like that's an actual step in the right direction. What you can do is you can see how that affects your sleep quality over the course of a week or so, and then decide whether you want to keep the practice or kind of kick it to the curb and shit can it. So think about what you're kind of doing in your day-to-day practice. Think about how your sleep could be affecting your lifestyle. There is no badge of honor for lack of sleep. I promise that that's not worth it. Clinically, they say 7 to 9 hours is kind of what you should be striving for. So if you can kind of set that sleep target and try and stick to it, then I think that'll be super helpful for you guys. And it may be something that sounds incredibly simple, but just think about how much your sleep, like I was saying before, affects those other facets of your life, and really, really take time to be present with your sleep. Make sure that it has the a part of your life that it really needs, because honestly, it's something that a lot of people can overlook, whether they're on a health journey or whether they're just somebody who wants to kind of improve their day-to-day performance. So let me know if you guys have any questions. I'm looking forward to doing another one of these next week.